Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Someone sent in a great suggestion to do a deep dive on Impact Silver. And when I was getting ready for this, I gotta admit, I was a little surprised by what I found.
Yeah, what caught your attention?
Well, for starters, they've been producing silver and zinc in Mexico for almost 20 years, and they just seem to be kind of flying under the radar.
Interesting. Okay, I'm listening.
And get this, their Plomosas project is putting up some seriously impressive zinc grades. They've got this really cool partnership with Tesla going on, and their stock price, it just doesn't seem to match up with how well they're doing. So, yeah, let's break it all down together. What do you say?
Sounds intriguing.
Hmm.
Let's see what we uncover.
Okay, so first off, for anyone who's not familiar, Impact Silver has been around since 2006, and they've been steadily producing silver from their two main projects in Mexico.
Okay.
Those are the Royal Mines of Zacualpan and the Plomosas Zinc-Lead Silver District. And this is key. They're practically a pure play on silver. Like 91% of their revenue comes straight from it.
Ah, that's a significant point for sure. I mean, that means their success is really tied to how the silver market performs.
Exactly. Which is something we'll definitely have to analyze later on to see how it all might shake out for Impact Silver in the future.
Absolutely. But before we get there, tell me more about the people running the show. I'm curious about the team behind this operation.
Well, I was checking out their leadership bios, and it looks like they've got a real dream team when it comes to experience.
Oh yeah, fill me in.
So their CFO, Jerry Huang, has over 12 years of experience taking junior mining companies public, which is not easy in this industry.
No, it's certainly not a walk in the park. You need to know what you're doing.
Then you've got Armando Alexandri as their COO.
Mm.
He's got 35 years under his belt, managing both underground and open pit mines. Talk about a wealth of practical experience, right?
Absolutely. That kind of expertise is invaluable.
And we can't forget about Victor Tanaka, one of their directors. This guy's had a 45-year career, and he seems to have a real talent for finding those hidden mineral deposits.
You got to have that in the mining world.
Right.
Being able to sniff out those promising resources, that's key.
For sure. So let's get into the details of their assets, starting with the Royal Mines of Zacualpan.
Okay.
It's their more established project with 4 underground silver mines, 1 open pit, and a central processing plant. They've got a lot going on there, and they just announced a new discovery, the Quina Vein South, at their Guadalupe mine.
I saw that, and the drill results are pretty impressive.
Yes, some of those intercepts are showing grades as high as 1,460 grams of silver per ton of ore.
Wow, and what makes it even better is that it's close to their existing infrastructure, so they can get it up and running quickly without having to spend a ton of money.
It's like finding a treasure chest right in your own backyard. And then there's the Capir project, which is part of the Royal Mines. It's currently on care and maintenance, but it's got an inferred resource of over 4.5 million ounces of silver, plus zinc and lead. With metal prices doing well, it seems like they're seriously thinking about restarting operations there.
Smart move. It lets them capitalize on the market conditions and maximize their profits without taking on too much risk. You can tell they're thinking strategically.
Now let's switch gears and talk about Plomosas, their newer project that they acquired just last year. It's already operating at 70% capacity, and the thing that really jumps out is the zinc grades. They're averaging a crazy 12.7%.
Whoa. To put that into perspective, most zinc mines would be over the moon to find grades even half that amount. It puts Impact Silver in a really powerful position as a zinc supplier.
Right, and here's the mind-blowing part. They've only explored about 10% of the 6-kilometer structure there.
Mhm.
Who knows what else they might find?
Yeah, the growth potential at Plomosas is huge. And speaking of exciting developments, did you see that they've teamed up with Tesla on this project?
Yeah, the Tesla partnership is pretty cool. They're building the world's first almost entirely solar and battery-powered mining operation at Plomosas. Talk about innovative and sustainable.
It's a bold move, for sure. It shows they're committed to being environmentally responsible and positions them as leaders in a world that's becoming more and more focused on renewable energy. This could be a game changer for their image and attract a whole new type of investor.
So we've got these impressive assets, a really experienced leadership team, and they're taking a forward-thinking approach to sustainability. But here's where things get a little confusing. Impact Silver stock is currently trading at a surprisingly low point compared to their 20-year history.
It does make you scratch your head a bit, especially when you consider that they finished last quarter with $6.4 million in cash, they have no long-term debt, and an analyst report recently valued them as a potential 13-bagger.
That's what I'm saying. There seems to be a disconnect between how well they're doing and how the market is valuing them. Before we jump to any conclusions, though, I think we need to understand the bigger picture of the silver market.
You're right. The silver market is a complex beast with a lot of factors influencing its price. So let's take a look at the current landscape and see what we can learn. All right, so as of March 11th, 2025, the silver market is, well, it's a bit of a mixed bag, you know?
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
On the one hand, you've got this really strong industrial demand for silver.
Huh. Makes sense.
It's being used in everything from solar panels and electronics to even medical applications.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was that widely used.
Oh, yeah, and that points to a pretty solid future for silver as a critical material, with the world pushing for renewable energy and all the advancements in technology.
Yeah, that all tracks, but I'm guessing it's not quite that straightforward, is it?
There are other factors at play too. For example, the supply from mines has been pretty flat the last few years.
Hmm, I see where you're going with this.
So if that demand keeps rising and the supply doesn't keep pace, we could be looking at a supply crunch.
So classic economics, right? Limited supply plus increasing demand usually equals higher prices. That's got to be good news for Impact Silver, isn't it?
It could be. Yeah, higher silver prices would definitely mean better margins for them. But we also can't forget about silver's role as a safe haven asset. When the global economy starts to get a little wobbly, investors tend to flock to silver, pushing up the price.
Right, silver and gold, they're seen as those safe bets.
Exactly. But when things are relatively calm, that demand can cool down, and that leads to, you guessed it, price fluctuations.
So even if Impact Silver is doing great operationally, their stock price is still going to be at the mercy of these bigger market trends.
Exactly. And those trends can be influenced by a ton of macroeconomic factors, things like interest rates, inflation, even geopolitical events. It's a complicated web out there.
All right, so let's bring it back to Impact Silver specifically. We
Mhm.
talked about their assets. We talked about the overall silver market. What about their financials?
Mhm.
You mentioned earlier that they seem to be in a strong position.
Their recent performance has been pretty impressive. Their revenue for Q3 2024 was $8.6 million. That's an 81% increase year over year. And they actually achieved positive mine operating earnings that quarter, which is a big deal.
That's awesome. It sounds like they're really hitting their stride financially. What's driving that growth?
Well, partly it's the rising silver price we talked about, but it's also their strategic decisions. They're not just sitting back and letting the market dictate their fate. They're actively investing in exploration and expansion, which is setting them up for success down the road.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that they're thinking about restarting operations of the Capier project. Is that part of this growth strategy?
Absolutely. Capier could add a significant amount of silver production to their portfolio. And remember, Plomosas, they're planning to ramp up production there to full capacity, which would be a major boost to their zinc output.
And they're still exploring for new deposits, right?
Yeah.
I'm sensing a pattern here. High grades, new discoveries, expansion plans. It sounds like Impact Silver is firing on all cylinders.
They're definitely on a roll. But then there's that stock price. It's a head scratcher. Why isn't it reflecting all of this good news?
It's like a puzzle piece that just doesn't fit. Help me understand this disconnect.
Well, it is a bit of a mystery, right? Despite their strong financials, their ambitious growth plans, and that potential 13-bagger valuation, their stock is trading near historic lows. It's like the market's not convinced.
Yeah, why do you think that is? Why hasn't the market caught on to their story?
There are a few possible explanations. Sometimes market sentiment can be a bit irrational, especially with smaller companies like Impact Silver. Some investors might see them as riskier than the big players, even if their fundamentals are solid.
So maybe it's a case of them being undervalued just because they're not a household name yet?
It's possible. Another factor could be just the inherent volatility of the silver market. Even if Impact Silver is killing it operationally, their share price can still be swayed by those external forces we talked about, like the macroeconomic trends.
It's tough when so much is out of your control.
It is. And it makes for a really interesting situation, right? You've got a company with strong financials, promising growth potential, what looks like a low valuation, and a market that hasn't fully embraced their story. What do we make of all this?
That's the million-dollar question. And speaking of connecting the dots, remember that infinite money glitch theory we touched on earlier? The one where governments might start issuing bonds backed by gold or silver.
Ah, yes. That's a fascinating concept, although it is highly speculative. It's worth exploring, though, especially in the context of Impact Silver.
Okay, I'm ready when you are.
So yeah, it kind of does sound like science fiction, right?
A little bit, yeah. But
Yeah.
it's a really interesting idea, so walk me through it. How would this whole infinite money glitch thing actually work?
All right, so imagine this. Governments around the world are drowning in debt, right?
Yeah, not exactly breaking news there.
But instead of just printing more money, which could lead to like crazy hyperinflation, they decided to back their currency with something tangible, something universally valuable like gold or silver.
So basically, they're creating a brand new type of currency, one that's directly tied to a precious metal. That's pretty radical.
It is. It's a big departure from how things are done now. But the people who believe in this theory say it could actually make the global financial system more stable, you know?
How so?
Well, by tying their currency to gold or silver, governments could build back trust and create a more predictable economic environment, which is where the whole glitch part comes in.
Okay, you've got my attention. Explain the glitch.
So because governments can basically print their own money, right? They could theoretically issue a limitless amount of these gold or silver-backed bonds.
Ah, okay.
And that would create this massive surge in demand for gold and silver, driving up their prices like crazy.
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? The more bonds they issue, the higher the demand for gold and silver and the more valuable those bonds become. But wouldn't that just create a new problem like a shortage of precious metals?
That's a good point, and that's what the critics of this theory say. They argue that it wouldn't really solve anything. It would just shift the burden from one resource to another and could even lead to people hoarding gold and silver and manipulating the market.
So it's not a perfect solution by any means,
Yeah.
but let's bring it back to Impact Silver. How would all of this affect them specifically?
Well, if this infinite money glitch actually happened, Impact Silver would be in an incredible position.
Yeah.
Their silver reserves would suddenly become way more valuable, not just because the price of silver would be skyrocketing, but also because they'd be backing a new form of currency.
So their stock price could potentially go through the roof.
It's definitely possible. But let's be real here. This is all hypothetical. It's
Yeah.
a long shot, but one with huge potential consequences.
So not something to bet the farm on, but definitely something to keep an eye on.
Exactly. Especially for a company like Impact Silver, whose fortunes are so closely tied to the price of precious metals.
All right, well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've looked at Impact Silver from every angle, their leadership, their assets, their financials, the silver market as a whole, and even some pretty wild theories about the future of money.
Mm.
What are your biggest takeaways from all of this?
For me, it's the fact that Impact Silver has such strong fundamentals, but also this incredible potential for growth. They're not just relying on silver, they're diversifying with zinc, they're exploring for new deposits, and they're adopting innovative practices like that partnership with Tesla. It tells me they're thinking about the long game and positioning themselves for success in a world that's always changing.
I totally agree. They seem to be doing so many things right, and yet they're still trading at a discount.
Yeah,
It's definitely a company worth looking into for anyone who's interested in the mining sector.
I would second that. But as always, do your own research and weigh the risks before making any investment decisions. This deep dive is just for informational purposes and it's not financial advice.
Well said. All right, folks, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Impact Silver. We hope you found it informative, maybe even a little bit mind-blowing. Keep those suggestions coming, and we'll see you next time for another episode of The Deep Dive.